Thank you everybody for coming to today's speaker session. My name is Todd Stuckless. I'm the coordinator for the Langara Engineering Transfer, and I'll expand that portfolio to all of applied science. As our speaker today is from the Applied Science Technicians and Technologists of British Columbia, the ASTT. So that's a 10,000 strong body. And the ASTT is active in post-secondary education. For instance, they were a sponsor of this year's Western Canada RoboCup competition at Okanagan College. And Jason Jung is our speaker. He's the ASTT liaison to post-secondary institutions. He studied at Kwantlen, and he has the BCIT Diploma of Technology in Mechanical Engineering. He has also been the executive director of their charitable organization at ASTT, which donates tens of thousands of dollars each year for bursaries and scholarships for technology training. And I'm sure in the run-up to the election this year, we'll hear a lot about the importance of technology training for the provincial economy. And so without further ado, Jason Jung.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I always hate hearing introductions to yourself because it always makes it like you have to live up to something. But my background, as Todd mentioned, I spent a couple of years here at Langara first, taking a 2-year. I was attempting to get into university. I couldn't really find a heck of a lot that I was really interested. I bumped around. I went to, I took some English lit and some sociology, and I took some calculus and a whole bunch of different things, and ended up finding myself at Kwantlen and completed a certificate of basically architectural structural drafting with CAD back then. We still learned on the board, so it's dating myself a little bit. And then I ended up going to BCIT, and I went into mechanical engineering there. My intention was to get into the building technology program to learn about how to build buildings, how to design buildings and inspect them, and then ended up going into mechanical. I spent approximately 10 years in consulting engineering as a senior project manager, working on a lot of different areas in the engineering and construction sectors, plumbing, fire protection, and heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems on everything from small residential systems like for houses and townhouses and skyscrapers and things like that, to commercial buildings, malls and stores and things like that, and then some light commercial. So that's my background. I've been at the ASTT-BC, which is the Applied Science Technologists and Technicians of British Columbia, going on about 8 years now. So, and my role there, as Todd mentioned, is primarily member and program development, and I'll go into exactly what ASTT-BC is here. Before we get into the slides, I just wanted to get a quick show of hands. Who do we have here from sort of the computer science area? Okay, so there's a couple. Sciences, chemistry, biology, that kind of stuff? It's mainly chemistry? Okay, so how many of you are planning to go on to university? Okay, so that's the majority of you. Who were here, who were present at the Association of Professional Engineers and Geoscientists presentation before, APEC BC? Okay, so a couple of you. What I want to do is give you an overview of what ASTT-BC is, and then if you have any questions with regards to careers, education, the certification regime related to either a diploma in applied science or with respect to a degree and how it fits into ASTT-BC, then I want you just to jump in. So, we want to make sure we facilitate some discussion here today. Okay, so an overview of the association. Established in 1958, we were incorporated as ASTT-BC under the ASTT Act in 1985. So what that act says is that we're a self-governing professional association with the power to make regulation. It pretty much means that we're a professional association that registers and certifies technologists and technicians. There's 10,000 plus registered members in BC, and we represent about 24 different applied science technical specialist disciplines. And that ranges anywhere from mechanical to electrical to civil engineering to bioscience, environmental, chemical sciences. So there's a really wide range of areas, and then there's some technical specialist disciplines that are more related to fire protection systems and inspection and things like that. There are over 60,000 technologists and technicians registered in Canada. We are the third largest tech association in Canada, and we are the 8th largest professional association in the province. Our mission, like most of the regulatory bodies out there, is to protect the public interest. So we've got the mission there. We do this by regulating and supporting the technology professionals' commitment to a safe, healthy, sustainable society and environment. And while I don't go into a lot of what that means in the slides, what we're trying to do here is maintain standards and maintain individuals' levels of competencies so that we are ensuring that the public is protected in areas that you all are going to work in, whether it be a lab environment or on a job site taking samples or different areas of engineering. Some of you might even end up in civil or structural and be designing bridges and things like that. And we want to make sure that everything's safe and according to codes. So what we do, as I mentioned, regulatory body, which means we recognize you for your education and work experience. We grant professional designations, maintain standards of certification. We are similar to the CGA, APEC BC. There's many others out there. College of Physicians. What the Act does is gives us the power to regulate. So if you were to do something unethical, unsafe to the public, then we have the statutory authority to investigate it and do a practice review and strip a title or sanction somebody. It doesn't happen very frequently, but it speaks to the level of education that's out there, as well as the high industry standards. Does anybody have any questions so far?
I'm a little curious that you're the third largest body, or your ASTT is the third largest body in Canada, but only the 8th largest body in British Columbia. Does that indicate that British Columbia has more agencies, I guess?
No. In fact, thanks for helping me clarify that. We're the third largest technologist association in Canada and the 8th largest professional association in BC. So we are third behind Ontario first, and then Alberta, and then BC, and that makes up approximately 86% of the technologist technician population in the country. So that's a good question. The 8th largest would be others, including others such as APEC BC, which is about 22,000, 23,000, and then CGA and others out there, BC Land Surveyors. They all range in terms of numbers, but that's how we rank 8th. These are the areas of focus that we have in 2013. So actually it stretches probably out to 2015. The campaign internally is called Focus 2015. But essentially what we're doing is we're trying to enhance practice investigations and professional accountability amongst the members. As I mentioned before, the ASTT Act, we're accountable to government. We want to make sure that we're registering, certifying individuals properly, and we want to make sure that we have the due diligence necessary to provide practice investigations and then make people accountable. We're always developing new certification programs. Utility locators, the electrical work practitioners, those are big programs. Those are programs where you'll see practitioners out there that you may be dealing with in the future that are, say, digging. And what happens if they don't understand what's underground in terms of utilities, they can strike a gas line. We've seen that before in the news. So the certification programs that we've been charged to take on are trying to limit those types of strikes on utilities underground. The electrical work practitioner is allowing those that work in engineering areas that have the qualifications to perform electrical work legally. So that's another large program that we have. Another area of concentration this year specifically is the internationally trained professionals. Is there anybody in the audience today that has come from another country and has a credential or a degree from another country? No? Okay. The ITPs is a huge area of ASTT-BC's portfolio because we're trying to figure out how to integrate internationally trained professionals in a meaningful way. A lot of them are coming to this country with really high credentials but then end up in survival type jobs or not utilized properly. So we're looking at ways in terms of regulatory practices, how to decrease certification times and how to recognize international training to be equivalent to Canadian. So it's some groundbreaking work actually that's occurring right now. And we're currently working on 3 different projects with the provincial government on the reduction of qualification time and integration of people into the industry. So that's good. STEM awareness, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. Obviously with those of you here in the sciences and engineering transfer, that's a big area for us. We just came out of discussions with the Deputy Minister about a week ago or so, and a couple of us were in Victoria, and we talked about the need for the development of a focus on science, technology, mathematics in the K-12 system. So what we're working on is career pathways and how students can move into these careers, and how they can understand where it is they'd like to go. Because we're finding that over time, over about the past decade, there's been a decrease of enrollment in qualifying math courses to get people into areas of technology and engineering. So that's a huge area for us. First Nations, women in technology, and obviously maintain and build partnerships like we're doing today. We've got a number of educational partnerships. What we do is we accredit programs or we recognize programs from educational agencies. There's over 430 in Canada. We've got about 10% of those residing in BC. The majority of the technology programs, because you guys are going to continue on into the sciences, say, at a university. The technology programs reside at places like BCIT, Okanagan College, Kwantlen, Camosun on the island. So many of you, after you obtain a degree, are going to end up going into these areas as well, possibly to specialize in environmental or chemical science, metallurgy, things like that, or in mechanical, electrical engineering. We've also worked hard to build relations with government. I talked about the contracts before that we're dealing with. Ministry of Jobs, Tourism and Innovation. The Oil and Gas Commission we meet with to talk about different areas of environmental standards that our members are able to practice in. And then local government restricted practice. Industrial employer partnerships. Major utilities, BC Safety Authority, a whole number of them. Linkages to industry groups, which I encourage a lot of you guys, as you're getting into engineering, once you decide which area, which field of engineering you want to go into, it's really important to link with the industry societies, not just the regulatory bodies or the professional associations. So an example of that for computer science would be KIPS or ASTT-BC is one. I've listed there ASHRAE, which is the American Society for Heating, Refrigeration, Air Conditioning Engineers. IEEE is is the Electrical Engineers and the BC Construction Association. So in terms of building your career potential, your career aspects, getting out there, meeting people, and networking is really, really important. So I can't stress that anymore. International agency partnerships. I see a lot of obviously cross-culture, multicultural audience here, but we've got agreements internationally with a number of different organizations throughout the world, and then we're also tied into the international accords. Specifically of note would be the Sydney and Dublin Accords, which allows you to transfer your credentials if you're certified into the UK, Hong Kong, Australia, New Zealand, and what that'll do is in terms of your job prospecting or your ability to be mobile after you get an education. I mean, the hope is that you stay here in BC, of course, in Canada, but the education that you're receiving, if you're certified under these types of structures, then you'll be able to transfer to different countries and be recognized for the experience that you have. There are a number of different membership classifications. I'll talk about those and how you qualify. We've got essentially two main categories, which is the CTech and ASTT, the Certified Technician and the Applied Science Technologist. But as a student technologist technician, you're entitled to, say, free membership. If you do not come from one of those accredited programs, then you can become an associate member. Once you graduate from a program that's accredited, you're now known as a grad tech. There are the two certified levels, and then we've got something called a registered technology manager. That designation there is for those individuals that manage people, manage technology in a technological environment. So usually that person there has got 8 to 10 years of experience in, say, management, and that's where that comes from. There's also another designation that we have that I didn't list because it's not fully active yet. It's called a Professional Technologist, or a PTech, and we're currently under discussions with the Association of Professional Engineers to talk about what the PTech's role is, a person with a PTech, and how that relates to an engineer, a professional engineer. Incidentally, those of you that will go on to take an applied science program at university and become a PEng, there is an opportunity for you if you do continue to take more specialized training, say in mechanical or electrical, chemical, for you to become dual certified. So that means you're an ASTT and PEng at the same time. So there's a lot of difference between the two. One is an applied, hands-on, practical way of learning and solving coming up with solutions to solve problems, and the other is a little bit more theoretical, like you're learning right now. Any questions on that so far? Certified Technologist generally studied advanced courses in math, engineering theory, and scientific principles. You're usually a graduate of a CTAB, that's a Canadian Technology Accreditation Board, or an ASTT accredited program. What the CTAB is it's an organization, it's a national organization that takes a look at outcomes and standards for engineering programs throughout the country, and they evaluate them against those standards. And if you meet those standards, then you get an accreditation level. So in order for you to become certified with any agency, there is the requirement for you to meet educational outcomes and experience. So at the moment, our relationship with Langara it's a little bit different because there aren't any accredited programs. Because the accredited programs are very specific in nature. I mentioned building technology or mechanical engineering and HVAC. But the ones that you're going into, you develop sort of the baseline academic knowledge to be able to become suitable for certification at this end. It may or may not mean that you get the certification, but you have the baseline scientific knowledge to move towards that. The technician level is somebody that's graduated from a one-year certificate program. So an example would be is if some of you chose not to continue on to get your degree, you completed, say, 2 years, and you just wanted to do something else or you wanted to specialize a little bit more, then it's quite possible that you would qualify for a CTech because you would have some baseline technical knowledge of technician level work, but then you'd probably have to supplement that a little bit with different things. So for example, if you were graduating from a chemistry program, you'd have to get some applied knowledge on maybe some lab techniques or what's happening out there specifically in chemistry as it relates to, for example, an environmental study. So very focused.
Would that typically be a BCIT?
Yeah, you know what happens normally is that students decide to go to some agency that specializes, that has specific courses. The way that I characterize a program like the university transfer for Langara is that, you know, it's obviously it's university level, but it's in terms of how it compares to what the technologist or technician standards are, it's not quite there. And it's not because the caliber or the quality of what you're learning is not good. It's that these certifications are very specific. So what you'll have to find is that people end up going to another educational agency to get some specific training. So you might go and take courses specific to environmental pollution in streams. And then you become a person that goes out and collects samples and analyzes those samples. But you're still using the stuff that you've learned here, right? But the training that you have here might not be very specific to how to collect a sample in the field. So that's why you often find, you know, the word at BCIT or any of these other polytechnics is that, you know, the students that's there is usually 25, 26, 27 years old that's obtained a degree and possibly gone back to BCIT to get a little bit more specific training. And that's typically what we see there, Todd, is getting that specific training and then eventually qualifying for these areas. Those are the disciplines of certification that we've got. I mentioned a number of them today already. For the chemical science program here, I mean, obviously chemical, you'll find yourself also working in areas of biological sciences, for those of you that go dual with bio, and definitely in environmental and metallurgy. So you see a lot of crossover in these areas. But in order to go into these different areas, again, it's a fairly focused education level. Like the program is specific. The professional certification requirements are, for the ASTT, requires a Diploma of Technology, as mentioned, the CTech with the certificate. You have to put 2 years minimum experience, 4 references from professionals, and then you have to complete the practice and ethics exam. So when you guys get out there in terms of your career, I would really highly recommend you keeping track of your work experience if you either do anything like a practicum or as soon as you start getting into the field. Because in terms of certification as engineers, it's going to be really, really important for you to be able to document and prove that you've done the work experience. So if there's anything that you want to take away from this as you continue on and finish your collegiate and you know, your university careers, is that you should be logging all of your work experience and working towards something. So because they're going to ask you at some point if you decide to get certified, what work have you done? So the 4 references from professionals, that's just so that the board of examiners or the groups that are taking a look at your credentials can validate your experience. So something in terms of career development would be, I mean, if you go into a job, even if it's for either a volunteer basis or a part-time basis, or you're there on a practicum, it's really important to maintain good relationships with them and then obtain any references that you could get. And these references are supposed to be technical in nature. Like, they're supposed to attest to your technical competency. So these are going to become really important when it comes to looking for jobs. Any questions on that so far? Nope. Yep.
So I'm a little vague. Do you guys act like a union?
Yeah, you know what? We get that question a lot. We're not a union. What we do is we validate an individual's skill set against a national standard, and if they meet the standard, then we're authorized by the province to issue a credential. So something specific or similar would be like in the brochures I gave you that you picked up. One of them is called the Engineering Team in Canada. That's a pretty good brochure there, because it'll give you sort of a layout between what a tradesperson is, what skilled trades are, what a technician technologist is, and what an engineer and an engineer's function performs, and how to qualify for those areas. So yeah, we're not a union, because we're not there to grieve any complaints or anything like that. We're not there to protect employment or to talk about job issues to an employer. What we're there to do is help an individual become registered and certified to show that they meet national standards in an area that they practice in after they obtain their education. So that's what that's for. That's a good question. So is everybody fairly clear on that? Yeah, this question in the back?
With professional references, do they have to have any specific credentials? Like for APEG, I know that they want them to be professional engineers.
Absolutely, and yes. So no matter who you go to, it's going to be the same thing. Usually the minimum standard will be their own certified people. So in the case of ASTT BC, it would be a CTech or an ASTT. And the logic behind that is if you are a professional engineer or an ASCT, then you should be able to attest to the level of work that somebody can do equivalent to your own, as opposed to understanding how to evaluate somebody higher. It's not to say that we don't accept references from others that can attest to that, but it's more credible when it comes from a registered professional. And so that's why that's required. Okay, so the experience requirements. 2 years experience in the field, discipline, engineering, applied science, technology at the level which registration is sought. 1 year in Canada, and co-op experience and previous experience will be evaluated on an individual basis. So that's pretty self-explanatory, but basically the 2 years of experience has to be at the level which you seek registration. So if you graduate with the equivalent of a diploma, so that could mean a degree, you have to practice at the level of a technologist to become a technologist. If you apply to APEG BC, it's the same thing. You cannot apply to APEG BC and achieve a PEng when all you've been doing is technician level work. So that's why it's important for you to keep a log to show that you've got progressive work experience over your years of certification. And you'll notice in the brochures there too, the engineering team, that in comparison to the PEng, the requirements here would be 4 years of experience in the field and a minimum 4-year degree. Right? So it really takes 8 years, whereas ours is in the area of about 4. But incidentally, the minimum of 2 years of experience, on average, a person won't meet that experience level till they hit about 4 years. So once you hit 4 years, you're probably at the level of technologist. right? So when you get into the job, a job out there, that's really important thing to consider too. Like my route was a little different in terms of what I decided to do. I worked for a large sales organization and worked in engineering sales, so technical engineering. When I decided to go back into the industry and the consulting side, I chose to go with a small firm. So it comes with all the different things you would think. A smaller firm doesn't pay as much. A smaller firm has less people. They have less resources. Not always, but generally that's the case. But it opened me up to a lot of different areas. So not only was I able to work in HVAC, I was able to work in plumbing and fire protection, design and inspection and testing. So it gave me a lot to deal with out there, to learn on the job. So those are things that you might want to consider too when you finish your degrees, is you know, how you want to start your career, how you want to plan the career out, as opposed to what a lot of people do is they see a few dollar signs attached to it and they go for that. So just select something that you feel is good for you and that you've mapped out, that you've taken a look at, and it's going to help your career development over time. I think that's, hopefully that's some good advice. Some of the other resources, if you guys are interested, and this may not apply to everybody here, but at technologyregistrationscanada.ca, that's probably the shortest URL we could think of. Free online self-assessment against the NTB performance indicators. And what that means is the national technology benchmarks for engineering technology. So if you were to go in there and start entering things like I do this, this, and this through a self-assessment, then it'll put you up against the NTB, and at the end of this self-assessment it'll say, well, you fit into this category, or you fit into this category. And the two categories that are there are the CTech and the ASTT. APEC BC has something similar, but I'm not sure if they're completely ramped up in all their disciplines. Maybe only 2 or 3. I'm not sure if chemical or comp sci are 2, but definitely something of interest if you're ever looking at, you know, sort of where do I fit in with this whole thing? Because like I said, some of you may continue on to get the degree, and it might not be in a classical engineering discipline. It might be in a traditional applied science. And then some of you might decide, you know what, I'm going to finish 2 years, and then I really like the environmental aspect of chemistry, so I'm going to go and finish 2 more years at a diploma level program and get the experience, right, that I really want to focus in on. So that's something that you could take a look at. A lot of the people that have a degree either from another country or domestically here in Canada with a classical science degree end up going through this self-assessment. And usually what happens is somebody, for example, finishes in biology studies and they have a degree in biology, but they don't do anything like really closely related to the biology. I know it sounds odd, but because there is an organization, a college of biologists, they register them. But again, if you focus into different areas of your career development, that may not be the professional association for you. So they do take a look at, you know, different avenues in terms of how to get your credentials recognized. The reason why our members get certified, and hopefully this is something that you take with you for later on in terms of career development, is that it's really important for you to be recognized for your experience. It's really important for you to be recognized for your education. So aligning yourself with an organization that meets those objectives is really key, whether you're a student or you've graduated and you're already working. When I was a student, I was a student member of the association. You know, one of the things I did was I took advantage of this free membership that ASTT gave me. And after I graduated, they sent me a bill, an invoice for professional membership dues. And I really didn't want to have any part of it. I got something similar to the newsletter and a couple different propaganda items and things like that, and I just decided it wasn't really for me. And what I found out later, probably about 4 years down the road, I got into the consulting area like I talked about, and they started sending me out to the meetings. And some of you guys, some of you men and women are going to head out there, same thing. You're going to go to this consultant meeting or a meeting with everyone there has some sort of credential, a PNG or something, an ASTT, a number, a couple letters that says you can count things on plans, but there's something, right? So to give yourself some credibility, you should get something that says, you know, I'm qualified. So I really stress that. The employers really value it. It adds value to the team. We've got a lot of partnerships with employers to help them find qualified people. And it's really important to them because it makes looking for an employee that much easier because they're looking for somebody that's met the qualifications. The QP status is a big area, riparian area regs. I keep bringing that one up, but basically, is anybody familiar with that kind of stuff? That's basically shorelines by streams and how pollution affects those areas. And it's usually tied to areas of forestry or mining. So, and what we see is a lot of people in environmental and chemistry, chemical and environmental with chemistry, those types of areas, doing the samples, and those are the ones I was talking about. The labor mobility I talked about also, and then the professional mindset. So again, for your career purposes, professional mindset. You know, if you consider yourself a professional when you get out there, you want people to treat you like one, then you're going to make sure you're part of an organization that supports that, right? It doesn't have to be this one; it could be any. I threw this in just to show a little bit of the what's in it for me stuff. If the rest of that stuff hasn't given you a good idea of why, we offer a whole bunch of different things that are of benefit to the members to save them some money and things like that, stay connected to industry. And then we send out these different things too. Career managers, career logs, member compensation survey. That member compensation survey is active and open to anyone to search. So if you're interested in what specific people make in the industry, then I encourage you to go to our website and check that out. Similarly, APEC BC has one. So if you want to find out how much you're going to make eventually, that's a good place to start gauging that type of thing. We've got a career development website that I encourage anybody to go to as well. And it involves information interviews, what to include on your technical resumes, how to network, and other good tips. And if you're interested in what some of our technologists and technicians do, techprofile.ca is sort of a library of our techs that have put the reasons why they've become one, or we do this to help youth actually. We refer youth to these different profiles so they can take a look at what certain techs do. Okay, so in summary, what ASTT BC does is recognize academic training. We hope to add credibility to your professional career. You're bound by a code of ethics, and importantly, it sends a signal to employers, clients, and peers that you consider yourself a professional. Again, I would apply that to any of the other speakers in this type of area that you've seen, whether it's APEG or some others. That there is for me, is a really important thing. Sort of the tail end of the story that I started earlier was that when I got to that meeting, I wasn't certified. I wasn't part of the association. And when we started throwing down our cards, our business cards, I literally, I haven't made this up or anything. This is a story I use all the time because it means something to me, because it's what made me become an ASCT, is that I started putting these business cards there and nobody knew who I was. I was just this young person that showed up at a meeting. and my card had nothing on it. So for me, I was a little embarrassed because people don't know who you are. People don't know that you take your career seriously, or that you have something in your background that means that you're qualified. So frankly, I was really embarrassed. It was probably about 6 months later, going through the process, I did get an ASTT, and then immediately my boss, he puts a box on my desk, and I open it up, and they were basically business cards with my title on it that had been changed to project manager. So for me, that was a significant part in my career development, was understanding that I had to take responsibility for what I'm doing, and to let people know that I do that through professional registration is really important. So that's my spiel on that. And the last couple things there, industry recognition, member services, advancement to your career, and employers pay for these designations. So they'll cover your fees in most cases. So I think that's it. Are there any questions at all? Any other questions? Todd?
I'm sort of wondering if maybe in the computer software industry, if it's a little underrepresented.
At ASTTBC, it's a little bit different. I mentioned KIPS before. Who's here from computer science again? I know we might have a couple faculty members here. If there are any computer science folks here, there's sort of two main areas that we break it into in the certification realm. It's structure, and basically KIPS is mostly software programming, and there are some programs that graduate students that work on hard systems like hardware. When you're talking about ASTTBC and the computer area, because we do register those in computer, IT we call it, or information, there aren't very many. And the reason for that is because the programs that we're registering individuals out of are engineering-based networking systems. So you're dealing with the design of networks and the hardware associated with it, maybe the circuitry, the circuit boards, as opposed to the programming aspect of it, or the user, the integration of the user into that equation. So that's why it's not necessarily underrepresented at ASTTBC. It's as so much as we have a very sort of niche area. There's only 1 or 2 programs in BC that graduate individuals in that area. Whereas KIPS, I think, has probably 100 or more, right? Most of them are, if you go to UBC Comp Sci or places like that, then they fit right into that area. Are there any other questions at all? No? Lots of glazed over eyes and... Yeah?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I noticed that you talked earlier about the various institutions you went to get your education.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen a number of these career talks, and I don't think we've yet had a single person who's just gone to an institution, registered, come out with a credential at the end, and then went to work.
Right.
How would you advise our current crop students, given that reality?
Well, it's interesting that you haven't seen anybody that's gone through that route. I think because I'm connected to a lot of these other post-secondary programs that are very specific, we do see those individuals. We'll see somebody that's graduated from high school and decided, you know what, I'm going to go into this, and this is exactly what I want to do. And they come out with a credential, and then they go on to work, and they stay in that industry for a long time. But the basis for that, I think, is they have either a parent or a family member that's working in that area, or they're very interested, say, in robotics. Todd talked about robotics. Mechatronics is a huge area for technology. But I think really a lot of people, including myself, and I mentioned I came to Langara, I didn't know what to do. And I would say, the easiest way for me to do this is sort of maybe to advocate exploring what you want to do before you get to that level of deciding to get into an educational program. It deals a lot more with issues in the schools, the high schools, and that's something that we want to talk to the government about, the teachers associations, the counselors that are in the schools. But you're right. I mean, although we do see a few people that do go in, take one program, and that's what they do, it's very infrequent that you see that. So my word of advice is, hopefully you've made some decisions in terms of how you want to move forward. The job market out there is such that it's a really great time to get out there, to look for jobs, say in the next, I would say 3 to 5 years. You'll hear varying arguments about how people, how companies are looking for people right now to fill positions. But the reality of it is we're still coming through a little bit of a recovery in the economy. And although specific pockets of the industries in BC are recovering or recovered, you really have to make some decisions about where you want to go into, because you're going to want to take advantage of that wave. I'm not sure if that answers your question or not, but yeah, take a look and see what you want to get into, what's important to you in terms of what your likes, your interests are, and then stick with that. And then you're going to be able to get an opportunity to get out into the field and hopefully find a job that you want. And then there's obviously there's a possibility you could go back to school and take a specialized program, which many do. So I think there's a question back there.
Do you know what the average age of your members are?
Yeah. The average age of our members is I think it's 46 point something. It's 46. Yeah. So we would like to see that number come down. We issued probably about. Huh? It will one way or the other. Yeah. What we're dealing with right now is at our annual meeting last year, we handed out about 40 certificates for continuous membership in ASTTBC. So the first one is 25 years, the second one is 30 years, and the third one was 40 years. The majority of them were 40-year members. So, I mean, this year we have another probably 30 people going through. So there is a really large discrepancy between those that are getting ready to retire and those that are coming in. The age gap is really huge. So 46, that's the average age. Yeah. Any other questions? Yep.
Well, great then. That's it. That is all. Thanks, Jason.
Okay, thank you.